Hello walkers, and welcome back to Mallards Rest in Paradise Valley, Montana. I'm gonna spin you around just a little bit to see me. My name is Henry. I'll be your proxy walker today, your virtual travel guide, your co-discoverer. And I run City Walks channel and citywalksvirtualtours.com. So I'm gonna spin you back around to get the good stuff here. And you are looking at the Yellowstone River. I'm going to walk you down over here to the left, not in the water, but around the bank here and down into that lowland area. I've done this before in cold weather, and I had a specific request to do some of these winter walks in warm weather. So we're going to do that, and we're going to make a big lollipop loop. And then we're going to, if we have time, we're going to go down to the Mallards Rest actual rest area, which is closed because, as you can see, the 2022 floods really damaged the road here, and they just have not, I think they're working on an easement on that far side to bring the road in from the other direction, and so they can open this back up, which is, it's a shame it's closed because it's such a great campground and access point. You can see some people in inflatable kayaks down there enjoying the river, which we also do in a raft quite a bit. So let's get started. This is Paradise Valley, and while we're up high, I'm going to spin you around just a little bit here. So that is facing west, and those are the, oh my gosh, the Gallatin Range, I believe. I think that's the Gallatins. And then we look north here, and you can see kind of at the notch up there, it's a canyon, and that is, the river goes through that and then goes past Livingston, Montana, which I filmed a couple weeks ago. And so check that out. Great little town. We love our little town. It is 61 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees Celsius, right about 10 a.m. and early part of July. I like to give you guys some stats. This is state land owned by the state of Montana, and I believe actually the river migrates as it flows through the years and as it floods and doesn't flood. And so there is a private property boundary on the tip of that lowland area, but it's kind of cut off by the river and public land, so we're just going to go ahead and walk out there. Seems to be acceptable. Let me see, what else can I tell you guys that you would be interested in? Well, first of all, hopefully the audio is working properly. I'm trying a new system using my phone so I can get HDR video at 60 frames a second. And it's working pretty well, but I'm still sorting out the audio issues here. I want to thank our Patreon supporters. Your contributions are very much appreciated, as always. I try to mention you guys at the beginning of these videos. Sometimes I forget till the middle. And then the folks who have done a one-time contribution via PayPal. The links for both those things are in the description if you feel like helping out. You know, it may not seem like a lot to you guys, but it is a huge moral encouragement for me to keep doing these videos and sharing these places with you. I enjoy doing it, but I really enjoy knowing that they're appreciated and they're bringing a little bit of goodness into the world. It's not just me out taking a walk pretending like people are interested, because it seems like people are interested. Enough about that, though. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, it is, 61 degrees, and it feels a lot warmer in the sun. We are out west, and people might think of rattlesnakes, and they should think of rattlesnakes. In Montana, we have the prairie rattler. It's the only venomous snake in Montana, wild venomous snake. And also, they are the least aggressive of the rattlesnakes. I don't know how you measure that, but that's what I've heard and read. and experienced, as well as the least venomous of the rattlesnakes, which I have not experienced. But I've come very close to stepping on them. Had one of my sons almost step on one, and they coil up, they rattle, and they do not want to strike, in my experience. That said, if you step on one, they're going to defend themselves. So I like to do something called walking heavy, and just letting your weight set down in your feet sometimes, and letting them sense through the ground that you're coming. Look at this. Don't get scared now. This bank is, there's a little grebe or something down there in the river, undercut, but you can see the erosion. Camera's not going to want to do that. There we go. Down here, that's probably 40 feet, maybe a little more down there. We're going to go through this gate here. If you haven't checked out the website, citywalksvirtualtours.com, check it out. The point of that is, we got some bovine friends here using the state land. Or maybe on the other side of a fence, sorry. The idea behind that is it makes these videos more searchable and findable. I've got them tagged. There's a little drop-down list on the right by location, and a little drop-down list by runtime, broken out in 10-minute increments, roughly. So if you're looking to find something from London, it might be easier to find it there than on YouTube. Or if you are looking for videos that are over an hour or less than 30 minutes or 45 minutes, you can check them out there. I've added a little bit of extra information in some of the posts. So, if that's your bag, check it out. Welcome to all our new subscribers. I've had a few people comment this week that they just found the channel. That's exciting for me. That leads me into, please leave us comments on the YouTube channel. I love interacting with you guys. I love hearing your memories of these places, of your own travels and your own walks. I love hearing how you found us and how you're using these videos. So yeah, got a little bit of caddises bouncing around out here. And some sparrows. These little bugs that have multiple stages in their life cycle, and they grow under rocks in the river, and then they hatch, come up, fly around, go through their breeding cycle, and then die. And the fish love them. These are black Angus cows, and they're big, and they will group up. They have a tendency sometimes to group up if they feel a little threatened. I've been in a situation walking through a pasture, and they kind of crowded up and got a little closer than I wanted them to. And it's a big chunk of mass coming at you, times 20. That's kind of fun. So over here, these mountains are the Absarica range, sometimes mistakenly called the Beartooths, which are attached but not the same, as my oldest son would tell you. Whoops, excuse me. And a lot of that is wilderness area, so you can't drive back there, you can't ride bikes back there, can't land helicopters back there. It's just a wild space with a lot of hiking trails and some good access. But you can tell those mountains are pretty rugged. I think, let me see here. Yeah, so that beyond this tree, just to the right of the tree, there's a canyon up there. I believe that's Pine Creek. And we have hiked the falls last June, right the day before the flood, actually. And I think, I want to show you one thing. Sorry to be distracted. That's kind of my my go-to deal is I'm easily distracted and excited by little things like this. This is an irrigation canal. And you can see we've had some rain the last month or so, some pretty good rain, which is nice. So it's standing water in that field. But this was put here through a diversion dam somewhere on a creek probably, although it'd have to come a long way to be coming from the Yellowstone. But it's a little thing they do, you know, they say, the old saying is out west, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. You can see there's either a leak or an overflow here. And it's going down that trail, which is going to make coming up that trail later a little soggy. You can see it's in this trail too. Seems to be coming out from over here. There's a low spot in the dike there. Anyway, we'll be moving on. I hope you can hear these birds in addition to the water. They are having a grand old time singing their hearts out. Now, I haven't been down here since the flood, I don't believe. There's a lot of scouring that's gone on. There has been, somebody had set up a sort of a neat homemade, oh, here we go, Frisbee golf course with various tees marked by old flip-flops, which is kind of fun. And then the hole is just down there, it's kind of right in there, is a hole which is a big chunk of PVC pipe hanging down, and I have to think that some of the tees down in the lower areas will have been washed away, which is unfortunate, but possibly somebody will set it up again. I was hoping to get out here a little earlier, but it's still really nice. This grassy meadow area, and then these are, I believe they're cottonwood. Those might be ash. I think they're cottonwood, which I think is, cottonwood I believe is Populus deltoides, and their leaves look like a delta. And then aspen is also a poplar species, which is Populus tremuloides, quaking aspen. Look at this. Look at these thistle. Now this thistle is a weed, but man, I want to show you the brilliant color of its blooms. Right? Just hopefully that can focus there. Got a little pollinator in there. They're super spiny, but they are beautiful. I'll keep on going down this trail. I don't know if you can see in the distance some giant sprinklers irrigating out there. Pardon me. With all the water we've been getting, there's a lot of flowers and blooming things and cottonwood releasing seeds, and everything's really cranking out here this year, and it makes me a little congested, and I hope that I don't pass that annoying audio on to you guys. That was one of the first comments I got on my very first video, which was in Edinburgh, Scotland, and I was sniffling a lot, and somebody commented on it, take a tissue, which was a legitimate feedback. I appreciate that stuff. I don't always know you know, I can't see these things through a viewer's eyes or perspective in terms of, you know, the curse of knowledge being on this side of the camera. Some more of those thistle. I was hiking the Beaver Pond Loop in Yellowstone yesterday, doing another side project involving 360 photos. It's 360 degree spherical photos. And man, once I got up, this first 3/4 mile is uphill and then you kind of level out. And the wildflowers up there were amazing. And I couldn't help but think how much I wanted to share that with you guys. And if it wasn't an hour and a half away, I would have gone down today to film down there. Here's one of those tees. So it's I'll kind of take you down here. It's just a painted piece of PVC pipe there hanging from a branch. And, you know, easily made. You don't need the big chains if you are willing to go ad hoc. Here's another tee here. I don't know if you heard that. That was a red-tailed hawk. So it's kind of right over in here. Hunting for field mice and voles. Maybe it's just trying to catch a thermal off that ridge. Hopefully you can hear that. You hear it in movies all the time for eagles, or you used to. I think they've gotten a little better about that. Ooh, here's some more flowers. I don't know if these are weeds or not, but they are pretty. So we're going to take a look. They probably are weeds. If you know what these are, let me know in the comments. The other thing I want to show you here that I just noticed is like this difference in plant life. There's a distinct edge kind of going right there. And I wonder, it looks like there's some slump here from the hill, or maybe somebody came and pushed it out. I don't know. Interesting though. There's a swallow flying by, eating up the insects. When you float the river, and I keep saying I'm gonna film it, but I haven't done it yet. You go under the bridges and these, or next to a cliff, and these swallows have made their mud nests up underneath in the shelter of the bridge or the cliff. And they're all swarming around eating whatever insects they can find. Tiny little guys. Some more yellow flowers. I'm gonna take some silence here, or some walking ambient sounds in just a second, but I wanted to comment on the river. I'll save that for later. Let's just have some nice nature sounds. I'm going to show you some of these prickly pear cactuses too. Nice little flower in there, super spiny. Lots of those low down. All right, I have to figure out a way down here. I think we're just going to scramble. Thought there was a path, but could be wrong. Ooh, we can look at some garbage too. Not just your everyday, somebody tossed a bag out the window as they drove by garbage. This is historic garbage. Right? This is probably dumped here 50 to 70 years ago, maybe more. It's old rusted stuff, some of it. But things don't rust out here because there's not a lot of moisture in the air, even by the river. And so it just sits. Every once in a while, you'll find an old car chassis of like a Model T or something in the river. But reminds me of one of the walks up in, last year we did in the Dolomites of Italy. And we walked up over this pass and we got into a bunch of old tin cans and barbed wire from World War I. 100 years old. But again, you know, it gets snowed on a little bit, but that's kind of it. Let me figure out a pathway through here. It's a little snaky. Ooh, look at this, an anthill. You can see maybe a little guy's running around in there. Who knows how far out that extends underground. Speaking of feedback, a few years ago, someone commented about asking if I could comment on the smells of places. And I thought that was such a great insight I had never even thought about. Of course, I can't transfer that, but it is such an, look at these awesome thistles here. Love them. You know, I never would have thought of it. Didn't occur to me to talk about the smells, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But first, so here's a barbed wire fence, and it is no longer there. It used to extend all the way down. You can see some remnants down there. I think the flood must have taken that out. And you can see some debris that settled here as the waters receded. This is up pretty high if you think about how much water it would take to get over here. And then there's a pile over there that looks like a beaver lodge, but it isn't. It's just a pile of debris. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the smell. So, having cows here, you definitely smell a little hint of that, but you also get the smell of these cottonwood trees and the river and the mud. It's kind of got this sweet smell to it. And then of course all the grass. Now, I want to point out that, oh, look at this. I believe that's an elk carcass. I can't really tell, it's pretty big, but it does have antlers, so. Right there's an antler nub. Looks like their antler was taken, sawed off. People can get money for those. And they lose them every year naturally, so it's not like they're, oh my gosh, look at all this debris. It's not like they're really, they're not exploiting the wildlife by killing them and taking their antlers. It's a big thing to go out and go antler shed hunting, they call it. Another T, but look at all this debris over here. Ooh, look at that tank. If I knew that that was structurally sound still, I would, and what was in it before, I could use that for some rainwater harvesting. All right, I'm gonna show you a plant here. This is, to my best of my knowledge, spotted knapweed, and it is a highly invasive weed here in Montana in the West, and it causes a lot of damage, financial damage for ranchers. It takes over meadows and kills off the other forage, and it's hard to get rid of. But you can see here, it's actually all over the place in Livingston. Look at all this detritus from the flood. This is kind of a neat adventure. I'm excited about this. Ooh, now, legally, I think I could come in here and take that because it's a salvage legally. That's a nice big 4x4. Sorry, nerding out a little bit. Let's go to the river. Ooh, there's a former T. Looks like it got, not T, hole. Taken down. Maybe put back up. Trying to stay on the legal side of this fence. Oops. Ooh, here we go. Go down the river. That sounds like fun. This is a juniper tree. Get a lot of those, especially on the drier areas. They like that. They thrive in that dry area. I forget what this is. I want to say it's chokecherry, but I'm almost certainly wrong about that. Ugh, so much knapweed in here. And this cheatgrass, I believe, is invasive too, this sort of reddish brown seeded. I think that's what that is. That's a killdeer. So if you're not aware, killdeer are ground nesters typically. I think it's a killdeer, maybe it's a sandpiper. And they'll do this little thing. I'm getting near a nest, so I gotta be careful where I step. They'll do this thing where they'll fake injury and they'll limp around on the ground, trying to draw you away from the nest. And I don't want to disturb that bird any more than I already have. Okay, private land on this side of the fence. You can see somebody came in, had a fire, and in Montana that's legal. We have, in addition to as part of our constitution, in addition to what you may have heard about recently in the news, there's an eastern a kingbird. Anyway, we just had a big climate trial here where we have this guarantee to a healthful and something environment in our constitution. Amazingly cool thing. You see somebody over there fly fishing. But we also have the public stream access law. So in any historically navigable stream, you can go up to, the public can recreate up to the high water mark. So you can raft down here and camp on this beach, and you may get, the landowners occasionally certain landowners will get huffy about that and try and tell you can't be there, but you can. I was hoping to go across here. Anyway, really cool aspect of Montana. Other famous fishing locales, mountain states don't have that. For instance, Colorado you can float, but you cannot even anchor because the landowners own the stream bed. I think ours is a better system, but landowners in Colorado probably feel differently. This is sort of a warm backwater over here. Hoping I can get across. Might get a little mucky. We'll see. The Yellowstone River, I was going to talk about the flow. So I think it's around 6,000 CFS right now down in Livingston. You can measure it by CFS or you can measure it by gauge height. I just have gotten my contextualization through CFS. And it gets dirty because there's a runoff cycle here, right? It snows. The snow melts, the rains come down in the spring, and it all has to go somewhere. So it goes into the Yellowstone, out to the Missouri, into the Gulf of Mexico. So around about July 4th, it gets to be where I would call it floatable. It's certainly floatable before that, but in terms of enjoying the experience, it gets muddy. Oh, hi there, guys. And it's not up except in from, say, Yankee Jim Canyon up to the park. It's not that, there's not a lot of white water. There's some small rapids, but nothing that I would consider particularly dangerous, although you always have to be aware of in the river. I would like for you to stay here. No? Okay. Anyway, it's a really easy, floatable river. You always have to be aware, of course, but lots of just relaxing time to just hang, and occasional rapid, small ones. In fact, we're going to float tomorrow. Not this section, but another section. Now, let's see if I can get across here without getting assaulted by cows. I think they're more afraid of me right now, which is good. These look like steers, not cows. I'm gonna go this way if that's all right. All right with you guys? Moo. All right, let's go over to the river. Can smell the cows, not just their manure, but their, I guess their hides and fur and all that, the rest of them. All right. Well, this is getting a little longer than I expected, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. I'm going to take you out here. We'll listen to the river. We'll take a look at its clarity right now, and I'll talk about that in a minute. How's that for scenic? Very nice. what a beautiful day. Okay, you can see the water now is a little murky. It's green, but it's much clearer than it was. It'll get really clear. You can see through about, I don't know, 4 feet of it sometimes. And great fishing in here. You know, stop on one of these islands or these beaches. There's actually some sand beaches in places. Kids can dig, grown-ups can chat, everybody can picnic. It's pretty nice. A little hard to walk on this cobble if you're not watching where you're going. I'm going to take here, we'll go look at this rapid, listen to it a little bit, and I'll talk about it for a second. Okay, I'm gonna zoom you in a little bit. There we go, right about there. So that is a rapid. It's pretty typical for this section. And you can obviously go next to it if you don't want to go through the wave train there. On the near side is what's called a riffle. So this sort of very shallow, wiggly water that sort of drops down into that deeper stuff. And a lot of times the fish will be in that deeper stuff waiting for bugs to come by and eat. Let me zoom back out here. There we go. I think last time I filmed out here, there were a bunch of fallow ropes out on this shallow area. Neat. Or avocets maybe, with the decurved bills. You can see a raft coming down, a couple of them. It's a Saturday, so it's actually surprised there aren't more people, but I guess they have to put in upstream and float down, so. There's a merganser flying by. It's a kind of duck, a common merganser with a little sharp bill instead of flat because they eat fish. All right, back into the woods. I think that bird we saw earlier that was fussing at us was not a killdeer. I think it was a type of sandpiper. A lot of shorebirds come up to Montana to nest, strangely enough. Some of them fly tens of thousands of miles. Or thousands of miles. I better dial that assertion back a little bit. I have to wonder, I forget if the law is the median high water mark or the mean high water mark or the high water mark. But that flood sort of changed that calculation a little bit. Whoops. Somebody brought a fat tire bike down here, looks like. Or maybe, I assume that's what that is from. Kind of neat. So I'm going to do one of my perambulation pontifications really quickly here. And one of the privileges of having this channel, of doing this channel, is I get to do that. And I just want to talk about the value of public land. Public land belongs to all of us. We get to share it. And as a group, we get to decide how it's managed. There has been a movement, particularly in the West, last few decades, to sell off public land. And in the West, the states have a lot of public land, a lot of national forests, a lot of BLM, a lot of state land. And certain interests think that would be better leveraged in private hands. But I have to tell you, I could not disagree with that more. It might be better managed, depending on who owns it, but, it locks it off from the rest of us. And I like getting outside. I like sharing the outside with my family, with you guys. And I think public land should be maintained for some, exploitative commercial uses, for sure, but mainly for conservation and for recreation. Here, and I know a lot of people disagree with me on that. That's fine. Feel free to voice that in the comments section. Just be, polite and critical thinking. That's all I ask. That ends the pontification. Whew. I don't think I mentioned, but we're at about 4,500 feet of elevation here. I think that's about 1,500 meters. Look at those clouds. Very cool. Might as well walk along the edge here. So you can see in this bend there's an island there, water flowing on either side of it. As the water recedes, that will just become beach. That far channel will dry up and become non-navigable. You can see the traffic on Highway 89 over here. People going into and out of the Yellowstone National Park. The visitation of the park has skyrocketed over the last decade or so. Become more accessible, which is good. But in a lot of ways, it's a hassle. I did that hike yesterday, and it was fine. Great hike, not a lot of people on the trail, but I went to go get an ice cream, treat myself to an ice cream afterwards, and that took about 20-30 minutes in line. Maybe it just seemed like that. And then the people getting food probably had 45 minutes to an hour. So if you don't bring your own food, you're going to be wasting a couple hours a day. Which is easy to do. There's lots of groceries around the park in the gateway communities. If you are going to visit Yellowstone, I highly recommend you visit my wife, travelingmel.com, her website, but also her other website, which is yellowstonetrips.com. And she even started a Facebook group. It's like 50,000, 60,000 people in it, I think. Lots of great hints, lots of people helping each other in that Facebook group, lots of great articles on the blogs, including one I wrote called 10 mistakes to avoid when visiting Yellowstone. I think that's what it's called. I'm going to hold this out without walking too far over this undercut ledge. Don't want to end up like that sign we saw earlier. Back to the Caddis here, which are up kind of high. Caddis do not bite. They're just in it to find mates. They're not looking for food. They're done eating. That's a hole. Now, we're gonna go over an hour on this walk. If you don't feel like hanging out, that's fine. You can bookmark it and come back another time. But I'm hoping we'll get, oh, here's a bunch of caddis. Here we go. Watch this. See them all flying off of there? Trying to get them to land on my hand. Not gonna have it. Anyway, we're gonna go, I'm gonna walk down the road down to the camping area and boat ramp that's closed. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume it's only closed to vehicle traffic. because it's convenient to me to make that assumption. Here's some folks fishing the edge here. Guessing that's a guided trip. A full day guided trip will, which I think they pretty much only do full days, for two people is, I think it's like $700, $800. Oh, thought she had one. Whoop, oh, excuse me. Nice. Might not be a guided trip. I don't see his tag. One more thing to show you is this. Just take a little bit of that off. That's sagebrush, I believe. Yeah. Artemisia tridentata. Not a lot in here, probably because they got rid of it. But elsewhere in this region, it's really prevalent. Sagebrush steppes, especially in eastern Montana. Pardon my sniffles. All right, we're almost back to our point of departure, but stick with us if you'd like, another 10 or 15 minutes as we walk down this road, and I'll show you how it got eroded and why it's closed. And then we'll go down to the boat ramp and see that. I see somebody else has walked down there too, so it makes me feel a little better. Although I wasn't really worried about it, to be honest with you. Oh, it's beautiful. What a beautiful day to be walking in Montana. Oh my. So this is the road you would take down with your boat trailer or your big RV. And then last year, you can see how it cut right up here to the edge. And so there's no way to safely have big vehicles coming down here. You can see kind of where it sloughed off over there. It's honestly, looking at this, looks really loose. Big cobble, like it would just collapse at any moment, but it's surprisingly strong. A lot of this stuff, if you try to dig into it, it's like concrete. We're going to go down here. And it's also a shame because they just recently fixed this road. Not fixed it, but you know, put the gravel out, and took out the potholes and graded it and all that stuff. Done a bunch of work on it. It's interesting to see some of these campsites and how fast they're getting grown over. How quickly nature retakes its own in some ways, and then in other ways, like that really old tin cans and stuff we saw at the beginning, or towards the early third, I guess, that's been around forever. Not forever, but anyway, you don't need me to explain that. And then other places, like in the deserts of Utah, they have this cryptic biotic soil. And if you step on it, it'll take, just stepping on it, it'll take 100 years to come back. You look at the thermal areas in Yellowstone, and they have those boardwalks, not just for your safety, but to preserve all the delicate structures that have been created over millennia. And people just don't even think about that. I'd like to think they just don't know better, but there's signs everywhere. And they walk out there, and it's dangerous and, you know, selfish in my perspective. Love these old cottonwood trees. A lot of the cottonwood trees along the Yellowstone and the Missouri were cut down 150 years ago, 100 years ago, for the purpose of feeding the boilers of steamships. So not so much on the Yellowstone, but definitely on the Missouri. And then also for, you know, as people came down, they needed to have heat. So they would cut them down and they would build stuff out of them. All the wood is really soft and doesn't burn well, doesn't last long. Not great for anything but providing shade on the river. There's a vault toilet or a pit toilet. Little tip, don't throw trash in there in a pit toilet, please. It's just somebody's got to clean it out, and that's a horrific job. And then also close the lid when you're done. Close the lid and close the door, and that allows it to vent properly, and it won't be so smelly when you go in there. One of the good things about this access is how much space it has for not just camping, but for parking trucks or vehicles with boat trailers. There was a ton of parking down here, so a lot of people could use the ramp, and I think there's enough space on the ramp for 2 boats or 2 trailers, which means you can, as this river has gotten busier and busier with people recreating, the infrastructure has not been able to keep up. They're limited by land ownership and space. And really actually three accesses along the river have been taken out of use by the floods. This being one, another one being Brogan's Landing up above Yankee Jim Canyon. And then I would argue that Cinnabar is not really usable if you have a trailer. That's owned by the National Forest Service. And it's a small area, but it's pretty nice to have that as an access point. And of course, they're also limited by budget. So these agencies don't necessarily have the budget to just build in a new road or boat ramp or access point or anything like that. So that's kind of on we, the voters, to insist on. So here's a boat ramp. I guess maybe you can't get to. It's a little narrow for two. You could if you really wanted to. There's something about the sound of water that just soothes the soul. So just a word on depth. As the river goes down, it'll get down to the end of this boat ramp. You can't even see right now. So another couple feet in this particular location. So, all right, so this is a pretty idyllic Montana scene here. You got the river, you've got people fly fishing from a boat, an old barn, the mountains, the clouds, the sky. I love it. Okay, I'm gonna head out on Friday to the southeast, to Tennessee, and I'm gonna be traveling around and hopefully getting in some city walks in places like Chattanooga and Nashville, possibly a couple others, and then up to Cincinnati and Lexington, Kentucky, and just hopefully getting a lot of walks in. So look forward to those. I will also be doing more nature walks and small town walks here in Montana. Caddis just landed on my phone. So keep an eye out for those. Look at this wild rose bush down there. And an osprey up there. Oh my God, I told you I was easily distracted. So keep an eye out for those. Come back, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But mainly, keep on stepping. We'll see you again soon.